What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I'm talking about the latest offering from Carcariass with A Cold Black Day. This also came out on July 11th, this time on Adposier Records. I probably said that wrong, but anyway, so I was curious to check this one out considering this is a band I've never listened to. Shocker, I know. You can't listen to it all, people. But I was curious to check this one out because I saw in the archives this was described as progressive melodic death metal, and this is a French band. And I will say this album, for the most part, I don't think is really proggy. I think if anything, this is just straightforward melodic death metal with some occasional touches of other metal subgenres, particularly a little bit of death metal and a little bit of thrash metal. But for the most part, it is straight up melodic death metal, very much akin to the Gothenburg sound, but occasionally does have moments where it reminds me of what would happen if, say, Death on their final two albums weren't prog and were a melodeath band. Because there are occasional harmonies that show up here and there on this album that kind of feel like a slightly darker Death on Symbolic and Sound of Perseverance. But it's not in a proggy way, it's more in like a melodeath style. But 9 tracks, and it was a fairly quick listen. The whole time listing wasn't shown on the archives for me to really get a feeling, but considering the average length of these songs was somewhere between 3 minutes 45 seconds and a little over 4 minutes, with a couple songs in the 5-minute mark, I would say this was close to a 40-minute album. But it went by quick. It didn't feel like it dragged at all, which is a huge plus for this album. Like, musically, it's going for like a beefy guitar tone, and the production kind of rich and a little bit polished, but with pretty good mix in terms of all the instruments. Like, even the bass has moments where it will shine. As far as like the songs themselves, it's going for these classic melodic death metal tropes of, these melodic melodies, or not melodic melodies, that's so redundant, these melodic riffs and progressions and harmonies galore, but still has some heft to it. Like the opening track, Cold Analysis, for the most part has a lot of beefy riffs going on, some chugs and blast beats, and chugs show up quite often on this album. Like, you get really cool chugs on Cold Analysis, the title track, Hatred and Freedom, and even more melodic chugs on the track Anxiety. Like, the chugs really stand out. It's like, man, we're just gonna get really mean on some of these riffs. But of course, occasionally you do get some like straight up thrashy beats, but on Cold Analysis it gets a little bit more punky, if anything, and there's plenty of groove to kind of break up the speed a little bit. Like, groove shows up in quite a few tracks, like Cold Analysis, the title track, A Current World, and Anxiety. Like, those songs have some really, really solid groove. But even occasionally you get moments where it will touch on classic heavy metal, like Descent to Hell. The opening riff kind of makes me think of like what would happen if Judas Priest was a melodic death metal band. Like, it kind of had a bit of a Judas Priest vibe, but it also has plenty of nods. Like, this whole album has some nods to bands like Amon Amarth and Arch Enemy, and even a little bit of like early In Flames, especially in like the lead work and the lead melodies. Like, the leads and the lead melodies were pretty tasty on here. Even occasionally gets a little bit more technical, like in Hatred and Freedom. You get this like really cool sweeping section on top of like a big gallop after the slow churning groove with a melodic riff comes in to bring it all together. But some songs do get more into the mid-tempo realm, like A Current World. For the most part in the first half, it's primarily mid-tempo, but you do get some like tapping sections and blasts before it does thrash for a little bit with some really cool melodies. Dark Light, I will say this song in particular was the most aggressive song on the album. Like, it's double time stompers, like Arch Enemy, like Amon Amarth. Hell, there was even some double time on the track Anxiety. But man, it was just going for pure heaviness on this track, like to the point where it could almost be just a death metal song that just happens to have occasional spots of melody. And like I said, when it came down to some of the different aspects you get on here, like Insomnia of Misfortune, like this song's kind of all over the map. Like it starts off really energetic, kind of like classic metal, and then you get into these like machine gun thrash riffs on top of blast beats, and of course touches on every melodeath trope. But there's some sinister tremolo riffs that show up here that kind of give it again a little bit more of a death metal vibe. And the tremolo riffs that show up here kind of are all over the map. Like you get like thrashy tremolos, some death metal tremolos, and of course like tremolo harmonies that feel very much like classic melodeath. But then you get into the closer, Artemis kind of goes for all the different aspects of this album like most closers should. Big melodic riff and a bass groove to bring it all together at the beginning, and then you even get a lead melody right away, blast beats, tremolos, some classic metal touches. But dare I say, some of the groove and the riff arrangements, on this track kind of remind me of Gojira. A little bit of Gojira kind of shows up on this track, or even bands in the melodeath realm that do it, like Scar Symmetry, for example. But yeah, this whole album, it was, for the most part, pretty damn fun to listen to. As far as any complaints go, they do kind of stick to a couple of gears and don't really branch out all that much. Like, there's no, like, doomy sections or, like, really brutal moments. I mean, you get aggressive moments, but it's not quite brutal. But because that's one of the kinds of melodeath that I like, where it gets a little bit brutal at times, you don't really get that. But the gears that they are playing at are done pretty damn well. And I understand this band has been around since the mid-90s. So, overall, I thought this was a pretty good album. I'm going to go with a 3.5 out of 5 for this one. This was an enjoyable listen. It doesn't drag. It goes by quickly. And yeah, it just touches on all the good stuff of melodic death metal, but does incorporate a couple of nuances, but I wish there could have been some more exploration. But if you are into bands like Amon Amarth, Arch Enemy, Early in Flames, to a lesser extent like last two albums of Death if it wasn't proggy, definitely check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.